I don't know. I think he's real.
Asking hate him if he's an atheist.
Oh,
Hatim, he asked,
What's
Apollo
up?
wants to talk to you. He said, are you an atheist?
Depends on the God model.
Well, a God model which states that God is omnipotent and omniscient, and he creates the universe. What do you think about that God model?
Depends what you mean by universe.
The universe to be.
Check on that.
Oh, you're agnostic on that. So, or like, just to be clear, you're agnostic insofar as you don't know that this thing actually exists, and you like belief on the prop. Okay.
Yep.
So, which specific God model are you atheistic towards, if you mind me asking?
But if you define the universe as set of all things that exist and God as a created universe, that's going to be logically impossible.
It's logically impossible. Oh, so you're saying it's logically impossible for God to create the set of all things?
Yeah.
Because is it because of some self-referential paradox?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So to be clear, so if you're just gonna give the argument for why the God model that I'm talking about exists, is that fine?
Say it again.
I'll just give the argument as to why the God model that I presented actually exists. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay, so you'd agree that like existence is just identical to some sort of like information, right? So anything which is distinct from non-information exists.
Say that again.
Anything which is distinct from non-information exists. Is my mic clear or what? What's that?
Anything that is distinct from not information,
Non-information. Non-information? Yeah.
non-information.
Yeah.
What is non-information? How are you defining information? Rather?
Non-information is just nothingness, which quite frankly is just going to be something which has no sort of properties whatsoever, which is going to be contradictory. So if you're going to have something which exists, it's going to be the type of thing which actually would have some sort of like semantical or conceptual conditions.
So you're saying if something cannot have
I'm saying if something has
properties or
I'm saying if something has
concepts, then
first
it can't
order,
exist or
I'm
something
saying
like
if
that.
something has first order semantical or conceptual properties, it necessarily exists.
If something has first order,
Yeah. So I'm giving
first
like a
order semantical
methodological theory.
properties and
Yeah, I'm giving
necessarily
a
exist.
methodological theory which describes the conditions for something to exist. And those conditions would be the necessary and the sufficient condition rather would be something which has first order semantical or conceptual properties.
What's first order semantical property? What does that mean? First order.
The distinction between first order and second order properties in this sense is that one is just giving us a description of the essential features of a given thing, and these features are not going to be epistemic or related to how that thing relates to the actual world. A second order semantical or conceptual condition, for example, would be something like talking about something being mind independent and mind dependent. These are examples of second order properties. These properties describe how the other properties relate to the world. So a description of a property relating to other set of worlds would be something which is second order, and just a description of the properties independently of how those properties relate to the world would be first order. I'm saying the latter is going to be the necessary and the sufficient condition for something to exist.
Okay, so when you describe something in the world and what it's like for that thing to be in the world, that's something that exists.
No, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying the thing which is not going to be descriptive of how that thing relates to the world is going to be sufficient and necessary for that thing to exist. The other thing
Well,
is going
I
to be
thought that was
irrelevant.
the former, not the latter. So that's why I got
No,
confused.
no, no. The latter was the other thing in that specific sentence, but that's fine. I was saying the first order semantical or conceptual properties is going to be the relevant feature. The second order is irrelevant. That doesn't play any existential role in determining whether or not something actually exists.
So you're saying if something has these conceptual properties, it necessarily exists?
Conceptual or semantical properties, then yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay, and so how would you figure out what entity or what possible thing has what properties conceptually or semantic?
It's not figuring out what the properties are, it's figuring out that they do in fact have a property which would be a collection of these properties or in the set of these properties, right?
So anything that has a semantic property,
A first order semantical or
anything
conceptual
that has a
property.
first order semantic or conceptual property is something that exists. Then I
Yep.
guess I'm not sure what you mean by exist here then.
Exist, it just means just to be a part of the world. It's going to be semantic primitive. What it means for something to exist, which is universally agreed upon, is just to be a part of reality, right? So if something is a part of reality, then it exists by definition.
So
But
you're
just
saying,
because it's semantically primitive doesn't mean that we cannot have a conceptual analysis of this linguistic token.
right. So are you saying something like um, there's no thing that has semantic properties and conceptual properties and or conceptual properties such that they don't exist?
Yep.
So is it true that anything I can think of exists?
Of course, it exists as either a mere imagination or something independently from imagination.
Okay, so are you going to posit a God that is exterior imagination?
Of course, yeah, I think God is mind independent. I think God exists objectively. I don't think God
Okay.
is an imaginary object. I think for
So-
God to be imaginary, there's going to be a logical contradiction.
So just to be clear, when you say exist, you're including imagination.
Of course. Why wouldn't I?
Okay, so anything that exists, right? Okay, that's just how it's different from me. That's just how it's different from when I say the word exists, right? Because I would say imaginary things don't exist. But I understand
So then
I
basically,
understand how you're using it. I'm not disputing your semantics. I'm accepting that. I just needed to be clear what you meant.
Wonderful. So then, in other words, you'd be saying something which every neuroscientist disagrees on, right?
Say it again. What am I saying?
So then, basically, you'd be saying something which every neuroscientist disagrees upon.
Every neuroscientist disagrees on what?
You made the dumb claim that imaginations don't exist. You don't believe that to be the case. That's literally idiotic. Like every neuroscientist is going to say that imaginations exist as physical processes in the brain. Like, what are you
No,
talking
no,
about?
that's not what I'm talking about.
No,
Obviously, I think.
the char. Hold on.
Okay, maybe there was
Wait, so I hate
maybe there's a.
wait, stop. Someone is saying something in the chat. The char. Nobody agrees with the proposition that imaginations exist. You want to come up and talk about this?
That's not what we're talking about.
No, I'm talking
When I
about what
say
someone said in
imagination,
the chat.
I'm talking. Look, when I say,
Mhm.
obviously the mental states exist. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm
No?
talking about the imagination. I'm talking about the object that's being imagined, not the imagination itself.
Wait, the
object
object
that's
is the imagination. You're literally classifying the object to be the
Look,
imagination.
what
Now,
I'm.
if you want
For
to
example,
say,
for example,
stop interrupting.
I was speaking first, bro.
No, I actually spoke first by saying the sentence that the object would be the imagination. Then I was going to continue another sentence and then interrupt again. So I'm telling you that the object in this case would be the imagination. Now, if you want to say that you don't agree the object which is imagined, which would be the imagination, exists externally, that's fine. However, I'm not making the claim that necessarily speaking, if something is being imagined, then it would be mind independent. Now, for anyone who disagrees with the prop that it is universally agreed upon that imaginations exist in neuroscience, like for example, stream. Hold on, we can get Cap, the host of this panel, the stream recorded the sources on Google which demonstrates this. It's like one quick Google research.
Yeah, no one's disputing that fact. Yeah, I'm not disputing that. What's in dispute was the latter thing you clarified. So I'm saying that if I imagine Spider-Man, right, it's not the case that Spider-Man actually exists outside my imagination. That's all I'm saying.
You never specified the outside of the imagination, and we can get even capped to answer this. What you said was you don't agree the imagination to exist.
No. The imagination exists as a mental process, right? But the Spider-Man does not exist, either in the mind or elsewhere.
You see, it doesn't grant the imagination to exist in the context. It never said
No.
outside of his mind. That was not specified in the recent sentence.
No, he's granting that imaginations exist. He's granting that imaginations exist, but you can imagine Spider-Man, for example. No, he's always been saying that.
He explicitly said that the thing that I don't grant imaginations exist.
Yeah, but what I meant by that
is exactly.
And in that sentence, and in that before, if you're listening, you just understand in that same sentence. Stop talking. In that same sentence, when he said does not grant imagination.
Oh, Friction, you're gonna have to get that music together.
You don't know how to do. That's what he's saying, but you don't even know what you did in fact say originally, and you're trying to interject with
Well, I've been here for about 10 minutes, and he did not say what he said.
You're really doing a bad job at understanding what the actual point is here, Detroyer, because he was not saying the thing is you're claiming to say.
No, I know exactly what he meant, and he said the whole time.
You understand the thing saying doesn't grant imagination?
No, just let them 1v1, bro. He has music blasting. Just finish talking.
Did you drop it?
Yes, he has music blasting, and he's repeating himself.
Don't drop it, bro.
Kylo, wait, before we continue, Kylo, do you understand what is going on here? Like, we get what
her team literally says Spider-Man doesn't exist. Like, well,
exactly, like Detroyer's like an idiot. But anyways, to continue with the point, back to you. What are you saying, Hayton?
Okay, so I just want to be clear. You're gonna make the case that God is something that exists exterior to, the mental object when I imagine God.
Yeah, I think God is going to be identical to something which is not just a mere imagination.
In the same way that you're going to try to demonstrate, like, Spider-Man exists more than just my mental imagination or the object.
When did I say I'm going to try to demonstrate Spider-Man exists in more than just your mere imagination? I don't believe Spider-Man is like an actual...
That's not what I said.
You said the same way you demonstrated Spider-Man outside imagination.
You would.
When you're saying the same way, why would I do that? I'm not doing that. I wouldn't do that.
You're not listening.
I'm listening to what you're saying. Kylo, did he not say same way I would demonstrate Spider-Man existing outside his imagination? Did he not say that?
It's all recorded.
It's an example.
Yeah, so what are you talking about?
He's trying to understand the way you're trying to.
Basic claims you're making.
Yeah,
Spider-Man doesn't exist in any sense. Detroyer, again, we can come up with a panel. We can debate on this. We can debate on whether or not Spider-Man doesn't exist or not in any sense whatsoever.
Well, he's just giving an analogy to understand what you're going to try to
Spider-Man does exist in any sense, and the imagination of Spider-Man does exist. So why is it the case that the imagination of Spider-Man is not Spider-Man? Why can't he just make a synthetic claim saying Spider-Man is the imagination? Makes no sense.
That would just be an equivocation on Spider-Man.
How would that be equivocation? That's not a semantic claim. And equivocation is going to be a fallacy with respect to how we utilize semantics, you idiots. I'm not given a sort of like reasoning. I'm not extrapolate. Stop talking. Real quick, let me just clarify the scope for you. I'm not given any sort of conclusion, and I'm not extrapolating to that conclusion on the basis of switching between semantics mid-conversation. So it would be an equivocation fallacy by definition.
I didn't say equivocation fallacy. I said equivocation.
You said that would be an equivocation. The obvious implication is that it's fallacious to even utilize this.
No. You can be equivocating.
But even then, it would not even be an equivocation. Even in that sense, it would not be an equivocation. Because an equivocation would still matter.
The way I'm using equivocation is just using a term in more than one sense. It doesn't have to be a fallacy.
But I'm not talking about a sense by which you use the term Spider-Man, you imbecile. We're talking about the fact about Spider-Man. It's not about how I use the term.
I'm saying that when Friction says, right, that Spider-Man doesn't exist in any sense, an imagination of Spider-Man does exist. He's using the term Spider-Man in a way that's incompatible with the way you're using the term Spider-Man. And you're saying, why couldn't it be just analytically or synthetically?
How would it be incompatible?
Because
there's nothing it's not stipulated in this definition of Spider-Man that it cannot be imagined.
I'm saying this. I'm making an inductive case that I pretty sure.
An inductive case is not sufficient.
Yeah, like I have. Oh, never mind, bro.
Yeah,
This
for
is
it
too
to say something is
pedantic to talk
incompatible
to
with
this
something
guy.
else,
To be
that's
honest,
right.
Cap, this is way too pedantic.
Can we figure out the next step? Like you guys can team.
Yeah,
You
the next
understand?
step is
Like
some
I
like
try to
actual
speak, but
confusion.
he like consistently interjects. Like it's not. I'm not in the mood for it right now. I'm about to get on a plane soon.
Okay, sure. Can you just move up the chart and we can just talk about the claim you made a while ago in the chat about Spider-Man?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Bring up Detroit.
I just find it funny that every single person who like criticizes the argument always loses to it. That's fucking crazy to me. Yeah. So you say that you don't believe Spider-Man is going to be the type of thing which exists as an imagination because the imagination does not have the qualities required to counter Spider-Man. What do you mean by saying it does not have the qualities required to counter Spider-Man? What's the truth spectrum?
Yeah, so under what conditions does something count as Spider-Man? Well, you can quibble over the details, but it's a sort of person that can shoot webs and yada yada yada. Maybe it has to have a certain sort of history. But regardless of what you fill in there, it's going to be something like that. And my imagination, or any aspect of my imagination, qualifies. Trivially, it's not that sort of thing. In the same way that I can imagine the Eiffel Tower, but either the Eiffel Tower exists or it doesn't. It's not a matter of my imagination that it does.
So you said specifically the imagination that you have does not have the qualities required to counter Spider-Man. The only qualities in your definition is going to be the requirement for something to counter Spider-Man. It's the sort of person that shoots web. How is that going to be something that excludes the possibility of that same thing, which is going to be the definition, to be representative of an imagination? How?
The imagination is just a sort of mental experience. It's not a person that does those sorts of things. It's trivial. It's not that.
Why
kind
is
of
it the case that the mental experience cannot be empirically identical to a person? That
Are you asking me how it is that my experience cannot be a person that shoots webs?
The
Are you serious?
imagination of Spider-Man, you said the imagination is incompatible, or rather, it would not be something which classifies the characteristics of being Spider-Man. That's the other claim. It can be
a person is not a person that shoots webs is not an experience. Imagining something is not a person that shoots webs.
Why?
They're different things. You ask me, why can't my experience be a star? It's not that thing.
Literally confused on the topic. What about a person who shoots web, which rules out that thing being an experience, empirically speaking? What about it?
There are people in the world. If they exist, they're a person that are going around shooting webs. My experience.
So wait, let's
going
just
on
get
in my
your
head is
argument
not the
clear.
same
Wait,
thing.
that's just a circular argument. Sorry, let's just get your argument clear, right? So you're
You understand how these are different things?
You don't understand.
You don't understand how an experience, like something going on in my head, is different from a person out there in the world shooting webs.
Do you understand that we're not denying that there's a conceptual distinction, but rather that there is necessarily a distinction in the metaphysical sense? You're saying that it is the case that a person that shoots web cannot be an imagination. That's
right.
Like idiotic. You understand this, right?
It's trivially the case because they're different things.
It's trivially the case? Hold on there a second.
Yes.
Is it possible? Is it possible?
It is not. No, it is not possible.
Is it possible for a
person...
human being? Is it possible for a human being to be a destroyer? Yes or no?
It's possible for a human being to be a destroyer. Correct.
Okay. Now, do you agree that there are at least some given facts about? You could say there are some facts about the human being which is going to not be true of the destroyer. Agreed upon?
There's some true facts of what? A human being that are not true of me? What?
Yeah. And there's some facts which are true of a human being as a concept, which is not true of the destroyer.
There are facts about the concept that are not true of me, I guess. There's something that people,
so you
people
agree
possess
that
the concept
conceptual
in a certain
distinction
way,
is not sufficient to reject an identity claim ballistic, correct?
When did I bring up any conceptual distinctions?
The only distinction here between a person that shoots web and an imagination clearly would be the conceptual distinction. There's nothing else.
No, I'm literally talking about stuff in the world, right? If I point to like a car over there
when you're talking
and a
about
box over here,
when
I tell you those are different
when
things.
Like
the first one can't be the other.
You're confused.
If I say a thing in my head and a certain experience can't be a person over there, you don't have to appeal to conceptual distinctions to recognize that that's trivially the case.
So hold on there a second. So if it is not the conceptual distinction which makes it the case that they are necessarily not identical, then what is going to be the thing which guarantees this distinction? Sure.
If you have to ask me, it's like asking me why, like,
you just
the star can't be a car over here.
Response, please?
When you ask me why a person shooting webs isn't
you said they're
trivially
different, so that means that
they're
you're
different
appealing.
things.
Well, yeah. What's going to be the just to be clear this? What is the benchmark about you determining there being a trivial distinction between a person who shoots web and
There's many
imagination.
things that you could. There's many things that you could point to observe that they're distinct things. First
Hold
of
on
all,
here a second. Hold on.
Spider-Man, if it exists, is too big to fit in my head. It's not that sort of thing that's going on.
Hold on
in
here
my
a second. You're not even understanding the point here. When you talk about the person that shoots web, what about that which necessarily rules that out from being an imagination?
People are not imaginations. They're physical beings.
That's
And they're
is
not
that
just
the
like
fact?
things going on in my head.
Wait, is that a trivial fact or is it a synthetic
Yes.
fact? It's a
It could be
trivial.
both, but it's a trivial fact.
Wait.
and
Is
it's
it trivial
obviously the
fact
case.
that people are not imaginations?
Yes,
You think it is true by definition that a person cannot be an imagination?
I would say that, but that's not literally what I
Which
said.
part of the definition of a person stipulates that it cannot be imaginary?
Yeah, person are physical beings. They're organic creatures. That's
Why
what a
can't a
person is.
physical being be an imagination? Why?
What? If it's
What
a
about
physical being that is not an
what about the
imagination.
definition of a physical object which rules it out from being imaginary? What about the definition?
What? If it's, first of all, there are no imaginary beings, except as a manner of speaking. But if
You
there were,
understand
there
that
would
you
not
said there
be, there'd
are
be
no
physical
imaginary
things walking
beings
around in the world.
without
Those are
the
real things, not
possibility of
imaginary.
imaginary beings to become a physical thing or to be a physical thing.
No, that's incoherent.
It's incoherent. And when you say it's incoherent, do you just mean that the inside brain cannot understand the concept, or do you just mean it's logical concept?
For a physical being, for a creature,
Yeah, when you say it's incoherent, do you mean it's logically contradictory? Yes or no?
It'd be coherent to suppose that thing is conceptually contradictory. Imaginary thing,
Do you mean
physical thing like a creature.
Detroit, I'm asking you what are the conditions for it to be incoherent? Are you saying it's logically contradictory for a physical process to be an imagination?
I'm saying it's a conceptual confusion. It's a conceptual.
How is it conceptually confused for to say that you can have an imagination which is physical?
You can have an imagination which is physical in the sense that the experiences are physical and not really matter.
Hold on there a second. So it is the case that it's not going to be something which is going to be incoherent, because originally you're saying that. Hold on, stop talking. Let me finish real quickly. You said originally that the reason as to why you cannot have a person that shoots web to be an imagination is because persons are representative of physical things, and physical things are not imaginations. Physical persons are not imaginations because of the fact that they are physical, and that would create a conceptual confusion. Now you're agreeing that you can have imaginations which are physical, and so the very same factor you've appealed to rule out these things from being the types of things which are, you could say, existent or imaginations, is going to be the same factor to which you agree is compatible with something to be an imagination, and that thing being the factor of physicality.
No, you confuse between imagination or experience, right? Of course, I think that imaginations and experience could be some sort of physical thing. But when
That's
you're talking
not
about imagination, when we're talking about imaginary objects, we're not just talking about the experience. People think that there's an experience.
The imaginary objects and the imaginations are identical. I'm not talking about experiences either. I'm talking about the imagination. The imagination is just going to be the thing that's imagined.
Right, exactly. I'm drawing a distinction between the thing that's
Yeah,
being
so
imagined
you
and
don't
the
think it is the
imagination for
case.
experience. Of course, I think.
So hold on there a second. Do you believe that? Hold on, real quickly. Can you have an object which is an imagination? Yes or no?
As a manner of speaking, sure. That's a common turn of phrase.
So
But
that
literally
means
speaking,
the
no.
concept of objects. So that means the concept of objects do not rule out imagination.
If you're talking about imagine as an imagined thing, I think it does.
You understand that all the objects included in the objects talked about here would be an experience, which is going to be an imagination, right?
Right. So if
You drawing a distinction between an experience and an imagination is not helping your argument here, because my points here are simple.
You drew this distinction as I
you
have
can have
between the
imaginary
imagination
objects,
for
which is
experience
going to be
and
the person.
imagination for thing imagined.
What about
if
a
you're just talking
person
about the
who's
experience,
web detoryer, which rules that out from being an experience?
what about a person? I think experiences is just. I think experiences are things that go on in my head. I mean, maybe you disagree with that. Maybe you think they're outside in some non-physical sense. But regardless, I'm shooting webs.
We're not talking about if they are the same or not. That's going to be a synthetic claim. We're talking about what about, you said it's trivially the case.
just made a claim.
Like, you're saying you said it's trivially the case that a person that shoots web is not an imagination, i.e. not an experience. Now when you say it's trivially the case, presumably what you're saying there is that some analytic fact about that given concept rules out the proposition that a person shoots web is an experience. What's that end?
Once again, that's not what I'm saying. I would say that. I think that's also true, but that's not what I'm committing to. I'm just
So
saying it's
what
like,
specifically
by
makes
trivially,
trivially true?
By trivially, I'm just meaning it's like obviously the case, right?
It's
But those
obviously
aren't
the case.
same
Given
thing.
your intuitions, that you just appeal to your fifis to chart.
Ask anybody. Do you think?
So when you're saying it's trivially the case that your claim is correct, all you mean there is, it's just obvious to me. That is just obvious to me.
Well, I think it's obvious that pretty much anyone who has competence in English language. But yes.
You think so? You definitely believe that.
Yeah, if you ask
Is that
people
the
if they
reason as
think-
to why Spider-Man is also defined as a fictional character, generally speaking, which is going to be representative of imagination? So you understand that if you're going to be saying this, then you're going to be granted that he's a fictional character, right? Which is going to be representative of imaginations. Then that's going to be fairly happen. Right? Fictional characters are imagination. Sure, I'm sorry to break it to you, but it actually is. Yeah. But you said you could defend the proposition that it is trivially the case that Spider-Man would not be experienced. How do you prove that?
Yes. I don't know why we have to go over this again. If you're actually like unironically thinking that like Spider-Man is something going on in your head,
my position, that maybe just like brain it. If that's the radical equipment I want to use here, then we can just flip the radical back onto it.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone is interested.
Yeah, when your last response, when your only response is you saying, I don't know if anyone is interested, then that's clearly indicative of you just disengaging and just tapping on the conversation. But I mean, great arguments though, great counter arguments from the legendary destroyer. If your only response is you say, well, I don't think people agree. Wonderful argument, dude.
Yeah,
as if the average person
already
is philosophically inclined.
Yeah,
as if the average person is
explained
philosophically inclined.
Yeah, they're obviously not. That's not right.
Okay, yeah, so appealing to the average person is idiotic. Don't you think so, Detroit?
No.
You don't think it is idiotic to be appealing to the average person to gain philosophical credibility for your position? Especially when they're not philosophically credible.
Of course. That's often very good to me.
Just to get back to the major point of view saying that you cannot. Yeah, hey, it's a mute up. Yeah, good. The charge is just gonna say, I want us to get back to the point of you claiming that it is in fact trivially true that a person that shoots web is an experience, or sorry, is not an experience. Like, how do you prove this claim? I'd love to hear the arguments. And by the way, Nasser, we can do this from literally every philosophical position, right? An atheist, for example, can just say, "Oh, theism is ridiculous," and that's it. That's not a good counter argument.
Yeah, that's great.
Nor is it a rational engagement with thought. Back to you, Detroit. What are you saying?
I recognize, just as about anyone who has competence with the relevant terms can recognize, that Spider-Man, if he exists, is a person flying around, probably through New York City, shooting webs, right? That's the sort of thing that Spider-Man would be if he exists, right? If there's no such thing, Spider-Man does not exist. That's like kind of trivial, right? My experience, something going on in my head, is not that sort of thing.
If he exists externally.
No, if he exists, right? If there is a Spider-Man.
You think people's conceptual analysis of existence is confined to just extra-mental objects?
No, their analysis of Spider-Man is.
Okay, so you think their concept of Spider-Man, when they're saying that Spider-Man exists, is conceptually confined only to just the types of things which exist as a mere, you could say,
as a sort of person going around shooting webs and flying through the
externally to the mind.
That's the sort of thing that Spider-Man
So
would
you don't
be if
think
he exists,
it's the case that someone could make the claim possibly that Spider-Man is just a thing in your head. He doesn't actually exist. He doesn't actually exist thing in the external sense.
Someone could use the word Spider-Man.
You've never heard anyone say this, that these characters are just in your head? You've never heard anyone say anything like this?
Yeah, that's a fine turned phrase. But if they're literally saying that Spider-Man is like a mental object, then I think that's either confused or they're talking about something else. Right.
So you think it is confused if they disagree with your position, but if they agree with your position, then clearly it's not confusion, right? That's your argument.
Yeah, no, I said either they're confused or they're talking about something else.
Okay, so why would they?
Because oftentimes people would be talking about.
Why would
they could talk about their imagination.
Why would that be a true dichotomy? Why would they have to be confused if they believe that at all?
the term Spider-Man in the normal sense functions to pick out an individual that's like shooting webs and flying through buildings in New York City. That's the way
Nothing
the term
about.
is used.
No,
It's a
wait,
sort
hold
of
on,
person.
hold on. Stop. I get that it picks out a person that shoots web and like crawls in New York buildings.
That's what
But
it
there's
means. That's
nothing.
what the
Hold
term,
on,
that's
stop
what the term
talking.
requires
Hold on,
for
stop
the
talking. What I'm trying to
thing of that
understand
sort.
here.
It's like
What I'm trying to
obvious.
understand here. What about the information of a person that crawls in buildings and shoots web, which necessitates that if someone was to believe the argument of that claim?
Because what do you mean in the external sense? My mind is not the sort of thing flying through buildings and shooting webs. That's not what my imagination is doing.
Even if your mind is not, a particular part of your mind or mental process can be. That's an idiotic argument.
No. What? You think part of my
What?
mental
You
process
think your
is flying
mind is
between buildings
identical?
in New
You
York
think your
City
mind is
and shooting
identical?
webs?
Hold on. Just to be clear, do you think your mind is identical to a particular process which is going on in your mind?
What?
Fully?
No. Neither
not
my
you.
mind as a
So
whole
the
or some process in my mind is shooting webs and flying between buildings in New York City.
Good. You're doing good,
Like, how
Detroit. So I'm going
dumb
to
do you
ask
have
you this
to
other
be?
question. I'm going to ask you this other question. So do you believe that a particular process in the mind, which is going to be the imagination process, which would be the person crawling on the web, do you think that has to be the mind for it to be existent in the sense where it exists mentally?
What did you just ask? In order for the imagination to exist, it has to exist in the mind? Is that what you're asking?
No. I'm asking you, do you believe it is the case that the particular process in the mind, which is the imagination, which of course is not the entire mind itself, do you believe that cannot be the person that crawls in buildings and shoots webs?
If you're asking me whether it could be, the process in my mind could be a person flying between buildings and shooting webs, it's not that thing. I mean, maybe it's conceptually possible.
Could it be that thing? Could it be that thing? Ask the God.
In some senses, it could. I mean, it's not like.
So
maybe
it's not
like
trivially
logically
true.
contradictory.
You said it's trivially true that this would be the
No.
case. You said
it's trivially true.
Hold on. You said specifically. The sharp blunder. You said
No,
the concept.
By trivially,
You said that it is conceptually confined to external existence. Now you're agreeing the very thing we're talking about.
He's saying
could be the mental process.
When I was talking
he's
about
obviously
that,
saying
Hey Tim, don't step
he's
in your
obviously
boyfriend
saying
now. I know you're
stipulating.
back shots, but he can step in afterwards. Detroit back
I
shots.
clarified. I already clarified this earlier. It's conceptual.
Getting blown the fuck out. No, Detroit, you said specifically. No.
I already clarified. This is the same thing I clarified earlier.
Kyle has recorded this. Cap has recorded this. Justice is also recorded.
You can go back to what I clarified this exact point like 10 15 minutes ago.
Detroit, you're not going to change your claim.
Oh my
You
God.
say
I can make the same clarification
we're
again.
going to take turns. Detroit, we're going to take turns. Got you? So I'm going to.
You've been talking for 10 minutes.
You've been talking for 20 minutes, so please stop talking.
I haven't
So
been
I'm
talking.
going to say this specifically. Don't you use the rhetoric stuff. We're not going to do the rhetoric yet. I'm going to say this, right? I'm going to make my point pretty clear. You said, okay, and I repeat, you stated that the concept of existence, when we're invoking that to talk about Spider-Man, which is this person that crawls on buildings and shoots webs, that's confined the conceptually to external.
No, that's not what I said.
Now you're agreeing. He's interrupting.
No.
He's scared.
That's straightforwardly
He's
not
scared
what
of
I
the
said.
point. He's scared of the point.
I'll clarify it once again.
He's penis man. He knows for a fact he's getting ripped apart.
Can you stop
say
and
to
let me
me,
explain
Daddy
it once
says,
again?
No, destroyer.
Let
Back
me
up.
know when he stops. Let me tell
Back
you when
up.
he stops so I can actually clarify the same things as
You're having the panic attack. You're having the panic
Hold on,
attack.
Paulo.
Destroyer-
Let's give him a chance to respond. Just to make
Yeah,
it.
let me finish my
Yeah,
point
okay.
first. Paulo, no, Destroyer.
Okay, let me know when
Destroyer,
he's done
stop
first.
talking. Paulo, here's what you're gonna do, right? So you're gonna mute me when he's talking, and you're gonna mute him when I'm talking. So start by muting him.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, he knows for a fact he's cooked right now. What Detroyer said, I'm gonna repeat this for the audience, including the Detroyer fanboys who's jerking him off in the comment section. What he said verbatim is that the existence, when you say, for example, Spider-Man exists, and by Spider-Man, Spider-Man exists, and by Spider-Man, you're talking about the person that crawls in buildings and shoots webs. That concept of existence is that concept, external type existence. Now he just agreed that Spider-Man could be an imagination, and Spider-Man, the imagination which exists, the imagination that exists could be Spider-Man. He agreed with this. He said this explicitly. Now, these are two contradictory beliefs. Now, let's see what nonsense gobbledygook that the chart is going to say right now, which is going to save him from this blatant blunder and contradiction he just committed in his counter arguments.
This is such rampant dishonesty. Once again, for the dumbasses in the room, what I was clarifying that Spider-Man is conceptually a sort of creature in the world, right? It's a sort of person that does a certain thing, right? It's true, right? You could imagine that it's not contradictory to suppose that my imaginative process is that thing, right? I'm saying it's trivially the case that it's not that thing. That's all I'm saying, right? What's going on in my head is not that sort of thing. Maybe it's not logically contradictory to suppose that it is, but it's not. If you don't understand how like my brain process or whatever you think the mind is not a fucking Spider-Man flying through the buildings in New York City shooting webs, then you're too dumb to even talk to. Fuck. Goddamn.
Oh, look at that. That goldfish pea-sized brain is struggling to understand and track the conversation. The 2 megabyte storage brain. God damn it, dude. Yeah, so you say, well, it's trivially true. That's not an argument. That's just you repeating the same position, which got exposed for being contradictory, dumb fuck. You stated specifically that the only way. Look at the chart.
First, you gotta let him finish, boss.
You notice that when he was talking, I did not interrupt him once because I'm confident. I know for a fact he's just saying bullshit right now, but he's not confident right now, which is why he's interrupting my point. What you said, the Detroyer specifically, you said, well, it is the case. The only way in which Spider-Man could exist, given the definition of Spider-Man, is just an external type existence, to which you then retracted that claim because you realized that was an obvious, blatant, conspicuous blunder, you dumb moron. Then you said afterwards that you could have Spider-Man being an imagination, which, by the way, would exist as a physical process. That's going to be 2 contradictory propositions, number 1. Number 2 is simply, when you say, calm down there, champ, calm down, you're panicking. When you say that Spider-Man, look at him, he's panicking. He just, his penis diapers, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just like a incompetent bastard. Just calm down there.
The line. Get on with it.
Detroyer, you're crying, dude. What's going on? So you said you define Spider-Man, and we can repeat this. We can re-roll the clip, by the way. You said Spider-Man is a person in the world that shoots webs and crawls on buildings. Nothing about the definition again rules out the very same thing, or that thing which is referenced in the definition, to be an imagination, right? There's no part in that definition which states that's, and by the way, it cannot be imaginary. No part of the definition, or no word or concept which is invoked in the definition which stipulates that the thing which is going to be referenced by the definition cannot be imaginary. So you're blatantly incorrect when you're saying that the definition itself would entail that it would not be the type of thing which exists or which can exist as an imagination, because no part of the definition references any second order semantical property, you moron. It doesn't talk about whether or not the thing is mind independent or mind dependent, nor is there any factor in the definition which rules out any of these possibilities. So again, you're dead wrong on multiple different points. I want you to lock the fuck in and address my points to stop repeating the same blunders over and over and over.
Once again, you're just straightforwardly lying about what I said, right? To be clear, I never denied that it's logically consistent to suppose that imagination, qua experience, could be that sort of thing in the world, the Spider-Man shooting webs, right? That's at least logically consistent. It's trivially false, but it's logically consistent. What I think is a conceptual confusion is that supposedly object of your imagination is that thing, right? So that's, recall from earlier where I was clarifying 2 distinct senses of imagination. Right. In one sense, it's the conceptual coherent, and the other sense is not. But trivially, either way, the object of this thing in the world, if it were to exist, is not the imagination. That's all I'm saying.
So you're just saying if it were to exist in the particular sense you're talking about when you're saying existence, it would not be an imagination. You understand that that's not the same as you saying that if it is the case that it exists, simplicator, it has to be the case that it will be the type of thing which exists externally. That's going to be a different claim. The first claim specifically is that you cannot have Spider-Man existing as an imagination, right? That's different from you saying you can have Spider-Man existing only as an external object if you're to be talking about existence as an external object, which is a much weaker claim than the previous one.
I never claimed that existence is confined to external objects, or that Spider-Man is confined to external objects. What?
Detroit, can I recap what you said and you tell me if it's accurate?
I'm not going to be
I think you would have a
I don't know.
It hates him. I know you're an atheist. You want to like back up your atheist boyfriend, but this is like a bad look for you, man.
Well, I just care about progress in the dialectic.
I just care about you stopping to judge the conversation and stopping the fanboy. You can ask for Detroit's autograph after.
I'm actually interested. Okay. I'm interested to see if he can track it better than some other people. So go ahead.
Oh shit! The atheist boyfriends teaming up to face the great Apollo. God damn it, dude. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. Yeah. So Detroit, let me make it now. Hates him. Just calm down. Calm down.
Well, it would be a test. It would be evidence against your ability to track if I'm able to track what exactly.
It would be a test against your ability to track. How about that test your ability to back out the conversation, Jim Chomp? So back to friction.
How old are you?
How? Yeah, just calm down. Just calm down. Okay. So, I'm just gonna say that what you're talking about here, Detroit, when you're going to be talking about the trivial analytic facts, given the definition of Spider-Man, that if it was to exist, it would exist externally, that's incorrect. The definition you provided on the table. Oh, look at them interrupting again. The
Well, you're just lying again. I already
definition
corrected you. I
the
never said that.
definition you provided on the table on numerous different occasions on the recording is you saying Spider-Man is a person that crawls on walls and shoots web. Again, about the definition, nothing about it entails that if such thing was to exist, it would exist as an external object. Because you agreed with the possibility if it made the imagination, which would exist, or which could exist.
Yeah, once again,
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing there's logically existence supposed that the imagination is that thing. I'm just saying it's trivially not. What's so
You understand that you're agreeing with the proposition that this thing, by definition, could be an imagination that exists. That would be incompatible with you saying that this thing trivially entails that it exists as something which is non-imaginary if it was to exist. These are two incompatible propositions, and even a fifth grader can understand this.
No, there's multiple things that I've said are trivial. One is that it's trivial the case that is not an imagination. That's true as a matter of empirical fact. And the second is that it's trivial the case that it's not that the thing imagined. Recall imagination in this other sense is not that sort of thing in the world. That I think is a conceptual fact.
Sure, this is
Both of them are trivial.
This is like
If you can't track,
I'm going to ask you this.
then I just don't understand.
I'm going to ask you this question. No, we just want like a yes or no. Are you committed to this following proposition? If Spider-Man was to exist, then given the definition of Spider-Man, it would be the case that Spider-Man is an external object. Are you committed to this proposition or not?
If given merely the definition and logic, no.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it is not the case that Spider-Man, given the definition of Spider-Man, would trivially entail it existing objectively if it was to exist. And that's
by
the problem.
trivially entail, just
Yeah, conversation's finished.
By
Yeah,
trivially, I don't mean it's a logical
I think we're done here,
entailment.
guys. We're done here, guys.
I already clarified what I mean by trivial.
Yeah,
It's
you
obviously
clarified
the case. I don't mean
more like you modified your claim. Gotcha.
This was one of the first things I said. I didn't mean by trivial.
Yeah,
I didn't mean
definitely. We have the recording.
Logical entailment.
We have the recording.
This is one of the first things I said in the discussion. Are you serious?
Case closed. Point proven. So.
Oh my god.
But then there's a continue debate anymore. Conversation, it's embarrassing stuff, right? You just retracted
That
your
was
claim.
one of the first things I said.
You
You're saying
opened
I'm
your
retracting my
life
claim,
and
so
just
one of the
conceded
first
just like
things
a
I said.
moron. This is crazy stuff, dude. But we have this on the recording. We can check out the recording.
You
to
can
see
go
what
back.
you lie about. So you clarify what you said, which is in fact not a clarification, but a modification for claim because you realized you got cooked. With that being said,
I said the same thing at the very beginning.
You definitely did with the show. We definitely got it.
Yes. I've clarified between two different senses of
I got
imagination.
you.
One of them I think is a conceptual confusion. The other one I think is just trivially false, but not as a matter of pure logic.
You said
I never said
specifically
that.
that it's trivially true. And it's just
Yes,
referencing
trivially
the
true.
definition of
I
Spider-Man.
clarified,
Given
but
that definition of Spider-Man, it would be the case if it was to exist. It would be something which is an objective.
Don't you have you not listened to
And
anything I've
it's
said?
verbatim.
Right? I'm not
Verbatim
appealing to
said.
just a matter of pure logic or the semantics. I've made appeals to the fact that if Spider-Man would exist be this sort of thing, my mind, whatever's going on in my head, is not that sort of thing.
You said your mind would
That's
not
compatible.
be the thing. You said your mind would not be Spider-Man. Like you said, like that
Yeah,
would be
that's
true.
compatible. Yeah,
And
yes.
you
And
said
that's compatible.
you referenced that by trivially there, you're specifically referencing the concept of Spider-Man or the definition of Spider-Man, and you were making a necessity claim.
No, I'm not. No, I was not making a claim that is followed merely as a matter of logic. I'm using it to point out that
I'm not
we can
even
pick up these
talking
things
about
in the
merely
world, and they're trivially not the same thing.
Logic is not going to cover the conceptual content clearly because logic is just about
Right.
syntax and so forth. I'm talking specifically about logic in conjunct with the definition of Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's not just.
You said those two tools is going to be sufficient for it to be the case that this thing would in fact not be imaginary. If it was to exist.
Only for
That's
imagination.
incorrect.
Only for imagination.
I'm sorry to break it to you. That's
Only,
incorrect.
no. Only for
Yes,
imagination
yeah.
in the second sense.
Definitely what
For
happened.
imagination in the first sense, I did not say that, and that does not follow. That was never my position. Remember, I don't think you can track this. I made a distinction between two different
Look,
senses
you
of
can lie
imagination.
about your position, but we have the recording for this.
I've clarified this like 5 times. There's two
You
different senses of
clarified
imagination.
after your
One of them
original
it's a
position got
conceptual.
cooked, I agree.
One of
Yeah,
them
you
it's a
clarified
conceptual confusion.
after your original position got cooked, I agree with you, definitely.
This was a claim I made at the beginning, right? In one sense of imagination, it's a conceptual confusion. I was went through this earlier. In the other sense, if you're just talking about the experience, I don't think it's a conceptual or logical confusion, but it's just trivially false. And by
Wait,
trivially
you
false, I
understand
don't
what
mean
I'm
it's a matter
saying
of
that
logic or concept.
you understand what I'm saying that Spider-Man could be an imagination or could exist as an imagination. I'm not saying that it could exist as an imagination insofar as imagination, as in the mental state of the brain process, is going to be conceptually identical to Spider-Man. We both understand that that's not what I'm saying, right? Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, you understand that if it exists as a possibility for Spider-Man to exist as an imagination, given the definitional content, that's going to be something which contradicts your prior proposition, which you're now moving away from.
No, I've never said that it's. I obviously would not say that it's a conceptual or logical contradiction that the experience, the imagination.
You said this is trivially
is
true. It's analytically true also.
Yes, I did.
You said this. I'm pretty sure you said this in the chat, and also you said
No,
this when Hatem was representing your position, and when
No.
you were representing your own position, in the
I think you're doing
conversation,
deliberately.
you specifically referenced analytics, right?
That was with respect to other senses of imagination.
Yes, you were.
That one I do think is a conceptual confusion.
You were, and now you're stumbling
Yes,
because
for the
you
other
got
sense.
caught in a rat trap. Okay.
Friction,
Okay.
I low-key feel like I could try to.
There's two different
I can try
senses
to
of
bridge the
imagination,
divide
and he's like confusing them together. In one sense, I
I'm
do
not
think it's a
confusing
conceptual
anything,
confusion.
Char. I'm
Yes,
focused
you are,
on
because
one single claim you made. I'm not confusing anything. I'm not making any
Yeah, but
equivocation.
you're
And you
drawing
can
in
try to
claim
paint
from
this
another
bad picture.
topic.
You can try to dishonestly paint the picture as if I'm misrepresenting your position because you have no
You're
objections.
trivially
I'm not
misrepresenting
your
me.
intelligence, right?
For the given sense of imagination in question, I never said, and you can repeat the tape, you can play back the tape, I never said that it's a conceptual logical error to suppose that thing is a Spider-Man. That's not my position. I never said that. I did say that for the other sense of imagination. You can repeat that. I was quite clear about this throughout.
Kyan,
you're
what's
not able to
saying would
track
be
that or you're
correct
just
if I
being
did not
overtly
ask him the
dishonest.
clarifying question, which is, does he believe that given the definition of Spider-Man, it would be the case it is not going to be an imagination? He said yes to that specific question.
That is correct.
In the second
Kyan,
sense of imagination.
So Kyan, I understand what you're saying here, but
Oh my
the
God.
thing is,
Don't understand.
hold on, the Char, calm down, champ. The thing is, the Char would have actually successfully weaseled his way out of the contradiction
I did say that for the second sense of imagination.
had I not asked him the clarifying question, to which he said yes. Kylo is not my friend, by the way. Kylo is literally disagreeing with your position. Me and
No,
Kylo
he's agreeing.
Kylo's
That
literally
is my
saying,
position. I said that.
Kylo's recording the conversation. You did in fact say this. It's going to get put on YouTube, by the way.
I
Got
don't understand.
exposed
For the other sense of imagination.
Not for the other sense, because in the
Yes, for the
I
other
was
sense.
talking about I was specifically talking about the analytics sense, which was specified in
that's
the question,
confusion.
which you said yes.
The fact that you just said that means you're grossly misinformed about what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the analytical synthetic sense of imagination. That's not what I'm talking about at all.
Is indicative of me being informed of the topic you're describing.
The fact that you just said that, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You're grossly confused. I'm not talking about an analytical synthetic sense. That's not what I mean by different senses of imagination. One sense of imagination is the sort of experience that there is.
Wait,
The other sense is the object of the
Afterwards.
It's as if they have different properties, they have different locations and doing different things, right? In the same way that's obviously the case that the moon is not the sun. Pull them apart, we can notice that they have different features and doing different things at different places.
Are the differences in features going to be something which is rooted in the definition or rooted synthetically?
Friction, are you saying something like
It's synthetic, of course.
Okay, so what synthetic fact which makes them different, Detroyer?
It's synthetic, of course.
Okay, so what synthetic fact which makes them different, Detroyer? What's the synthetic fact?
That the object of our terms, of our concepts, of our denotative phrases are picking up different things.
Hold on, stop. You said it's a synthetic fact. Like it's going to be rooted synthetically, not analytically, but then you're appealing to denotations. With that being said,
Yes,
I'm going to ask you this question, right? So, what specific thing, which is synthetically true of both concepts, which makes it so that they are going to be denoting different things per your own wordings? I'm curious.
For the moon and sun, or for the Spider-Man and the experience?
Hold on. What's the fact? Because your mic was mumbling for a second. Your mic was a bit, I guess.
You asked me to explain something. Are you talking about the moon and sun case, or the Spider-Man, or the?
I'm asking you what fact.
Are you talking for this? For which case? For the Spider-Man
What part
and
of my
imagination
question is
case?
hard for you to understand, Detroit? It's a very one-dimensional.
I'm asking which case you're talking
I'm
about.
talking
You're
about the Spider-Man and the imagination.
Yeah.
They are obviously different, right?
Yes. So.
Okay. Now you believe this to be a synthetically true proposition, correct? Okay,
Yeah,
good boy. So now tell me what specifically makes that proposition true. Like what's going to be the fact which makes that proposition true?
Yes.
What thing
So
about the
term like
concept which makes them synthetically different, Detroit? What's hard for you to understand?
Okay, but do I have to repeat what it is for something to be Spider-Man?
I want to just address the question of something rhetorically grandstand, okay?
Yes. So when I'm talking about my experience, I'm talking about something mental. It turns out that I probably got something going on in the head, or maybe it's something non-physical. But at the very least, we have pretty good reason to think that it's just like obvious that that's not the sort of thing that's the moon or a person flying between buildings. Those are different things, right? So
Okay, so you're saying that when you're talking about your experience, you're talking about something mental, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then when you're talking about something like Spider-Man, for example, you're talking about something external, given your definition?
I'm not saying by definition it's something external. I'm saying
you're talking about your intentional states here, Detroit. Lock the fuck in, right? So you're saying that given your intentional states, it is the case that when you're talking about experience, you're talking about something mental. How is that sufficient for experience or the imagination to be different from Spider-Man synthetically speaking? How would that be sufficient?
It's not. I'm not saying it's sufficient definitionally speaking. Once again, that was never my claim.
Okay, so it's not sufficient for to say that they're synthetically different on the basis of the experience being mental, correct?
Yeah, again.
So the reason that given is insufficient so far. So what's the other reason for that claim?
I've been talking about the features of the things denoted, right?
Okay, so we're gonna roll back. We're gonna roll back the dialogue here one more time for the tutorial. Okay,
this is what I was just explaining.
You gave an explanation to which you agreed was inadequate.
And
You just said it was insufficient. Kylo, did he not just agree that the comparison factor you picked out is insufficient for demonstrating the proposition on the table? Did he not just say this a while ago, Kylo? Kylo, did he not say this? Chat, did he not just
it's all recorded. I wasn't here.
Okay, gosh, he was not here. It's all recorded anyway, so that's fine. So sure, I'm gonna rerun the point, right? So you said specifically that so that's fine. Sure, I'm gonna rerun the point, right? So you said specifically that what makes it the case that it is true synthetically that they are different is that when you're talking about the reference in there is something mental. You're talking about something mental.
Once again, there are features
how is that
of the things denoted
to demonstrate the claim that you're synthetically different, Destroyer?
Once again, there are very good reason to think that there are features true of the thing in the world, extensionally speaking, not just a matter of definition, which
okay.
once again,
what type of inference are you talking about here?
an inference about the things denoted, right? There's when I talk about my experience, I'm denoting something I think which is going on inside my head. When I talk about the Spider-Man, if that denotes anything, it's talking about a person flying through the streets of New York and shooting webs.
You agree that the
those are
definition of
possibly
Spider-Man
the
does
same
not
thing.
entail.
Yes, it is. You're reading something that I already agreed to, right? It's true. It's not an analytic truth that the experience is not that thing. I'm saying it's true, in fact, that it's not that thing.
Is it the case that the reason you've given as to why it is the case that Spider-Man would not be existent as an imagination if it was to exist is based on the fact that when you're talking about an imagination experience, you're talking about something mental. Was that not the reason you've given on the table, Detroyer?
No, it's not. It's not just that I'm talking about something mental, right? It's the fact that the
So
thing
what's the
that
other
mental
reason?
that I'm talking about is something going on in my head and not flying through the streets of New York.
Why is
They
it
have
the
different
case
features.
why is it the case that makes it so that they're different? Why can't they be identical despite it being something going on in your head?
Because what? Because in order
What is hard for you to
recall for what it means
understand?
for I don't know what's so unclear about this. Recall for something to be Spider-Man, it has to be sort of person shooting webs flying through New York City. I think
Yeah.
there's very good reason to think that my experience is not that thing. I'm not saying
Hold
it's
on
a
there a
matter of
second.
pure definition
Hold on there a
or
second.
pure
New
logic.
York City, hold on. New York City does not bake in an external commitment, right? You could have an idea. You agreed on this proposition, so that would not be sufficient once again for there to be any
No.
synthetic difference.
No. You're just appealing to the fact that it's not a definitional or logical truth that they're distinct. I'm not saying that it is. So the fact that it's true of Spider-Man or even New York City that they're not definitionally distinct.
Detroyer.
Yes, there is. Logic that New York City is not imagination. I guess that's logically consistent, right? Sure, it's conceptually consistent, perhaps, right? I'm just saying that it's obviously the case that they're not the same, right? We can pick up facts about
So
New
you
York City
understand that
and
you
about Spider-Man
understand
flying through New York City
you
that are
understand
not the
you're
experience in my
defending the
head.
claim. You're defending the claim that there's some synthetic differentiation between these two concepts
Yes,
or
and I've already explained. There's features
Now
to
I'm
the
telling you
one
here,
that
the
I'm
chart, that these synthetic difference that you're talking about here is
Uh-huh.
solely on the basis of the conceptual content being presented to us about both concepts, about the concept of what
No.
determines something to be an imagination, and about the concept of
No,
perspective
it's
of what
not.
it means
Trivially,
for
it's
something
not. I
to
already
be
explained why it's
Spider-Man.
not.
Yeah, that's fine.
No.
Now let me finish my point and explain to why
Okay,
you're
I'll
not
explain why it's not in a
interrupting.
second.
Now, to finish the other part of what I'm saying here before you interrupt it, I'm telling you here that given that information in isolation, whereas the definition of Spider-Man does not invoke any sort of external ontic commitment, it doesn't specify the type of ontic profile by which New York City is going to be existent in, it would not be the case that it is going to be true synthetically, or is it going to be the case that it's sufficient to say that they're synthetically different, or by synthetically different, to talk about Spider-Man and imagination. You can't say those two things are synthetically different only on the basis of the definition in conjunct with the empirics that we have available, because the empirics we have available is compatible equally with it existing, but the New York City concept there in the definition is just going to be something referencing a mere mental landscape. That's the point I'm making, and that's the point you're not understanding, Destroyer.
No. All that was on except for one claim which you said, which I straightforwardly disagree with, and it's obviously false.
Holy
You
shit.
said I think it is a trivial empirical fact that my experience is not flying through the streets of New York City shooting webs. Right? That's one of the things I'm saying is obvious.
Why
I'm
would
not
that
saying
be
it's true as a
true?
matter of definition. I'm not saying it's definitionally true.
You
I'm saying it's
agree
just
that's
true.
not
My
true.
experience.
You agree that's not true, trivially.
I know, I do agree that it's trivially true.
No, you said early on that it can be true for experience, that you could have this given thing flying through New York City.
No, now you're getting confused on what trivial means again. I'm not saying by trivial I mean merely as a matter of semantics or logic. It means like it's obviously true.
Even by empirical or synthetic standards, it would not be trivially true. That's my whole point.
Of course. What? Of course it is.
No, it isn't.
What you're saying is not obvious that your experience is not.
It has to be specified that you're talking about the external world destroyer.
No, I'm not. What specified? How so? I'm just talking about what Spider-Man would be.
I'm gonna break this down for you to understand, because this is just flying over your head, right? For it to be trivially true, this is the condition for me to agree with you. The condition for me to agree with your position there, that it's trivially true that Spider-Man is not the imagination if it was to exist, is if I'm taking Spider-Man to be the type of thing which would be a person crawling on walls or shooting webs in the actual New York City that I'm aware of externally to the mind. That should be the condition.
Yeah, something like that. That's what something would have to be Spider-Man.
It's not specified in the definition.
That's the sort of thing Spider-Man would have to be, as we use that term, for Spider-Man to exist. Yeah.
Holy shit. The chart, you're saying the empirical details in conjunct, and I want you to listen closely, the empirical details in conjunct with the definitional content of Spider-Man and imagination makes it the case that they are different. It doesn't have to be necessarily true, but it makes it the case they're different. I'm telling you that the evidence you have available, the information you have available to substantiate the claim is not adequate, because it's not specified in the definitional content that New York City has to be the actual New York City external to the mind. The definitional content does not specify. So hold on to your second. The definitional content does not reference any second-order semantical property about mind independency or mind dependency. So it's not sufficient, Charles.
No. Once again, I'm not supposing that it's a matter of definition that New York City is a non-mental thing. Once again, it's not a conceptual.
Okay, so you agree that the definitional content could be. You agree the definitional content could be representative of something which is imaginary, like New York City, right? You agree with this, right?
Again, what I said at this level of Spider-Man, I also say at the level of New York City. Of course.
Okay, definitely. So, considering this into perspective, then why is it more likely to be true if Spider-Man was to exist, given that definition, then the empirical details would point towards it being the case that it exists objectively?
Because we have facts to indicate that my experience is not that sort of thing, right? It's not the sort of thing flying through New York City, shooting webs. It's not the sort of thing that is New York City.
Why is it the case that the experience is not that sort of thing? Circular arguments incoming, by the way, guys. Go ahead, give the argument.
Because my experience is the sort of thing going on in my head. And something in New York City is not going on in my head.
Wait, hold on there a second. Why is it the case that the New York City thing it cannot be, or is not the thing going on in your head? Sorry, why is that not the case?
It's a place on Earth, right?
Okay, so now you're stipulating that it is the case that it is external. So you're stipulating now.
Yes.
New York City, yeah. So you said specifically that you're not stipulating any second-order properties. You're not talking about. You're not supposing.
Not in the terms of the definition.
Hold on, stop, Deshar. You said that in the definitional content of Spider-Man, when you're talking about the person that crawls in buildings, you're not stipulating anything about it being a mind-independent feature or a mind-dependent feature. Now you're stipulating that condition, which is going to be in opposition to the prior definitional content. You're adding more things to the definition.
I'm not offering a new definition. I'm saying it's an empirical fact.
I'm not saying you're offering a new definition, idiots. I'm saying you're offering more things outside of the definition, moron.
Right, I'm offering empirical facts.
Yes, so that would not be sufficient. You said specifically that the empirics that we have available and the definitional content soul is going to be sufficient to say that there's a synthetic difference.
Yes.
Now it is not the case that those two things are sufficient.
They are sufficient. I already explained how they're sufficient. The empirical facts do show that they're different.
They did not. The thing that you're utilizing there to demonstrate that they are different is you saying that by New York City, it's going to be something you're referencing a place on Earth, right? So what you mean there when you're talking about New York City in the definition of Spider-Man is some external world feature. But you said previously you're not making this into the definition.
No, you're
what's going on.
You're inputting the pure empirical fact in the definition. I'm not doing that, right? It's not part of the definition.
I'm not doing that. You're doing this right now, and I'm pointing out this is a mere confusion.
You're saying that I'm doing it, but that's not my view. That's not what
Everyone vote on the
nothing of the sort.
You're talking about to be the case that given the empirical facts me and you both have right here, right now, and the definition of Spider-Man, it would be the case that if Spider-Man was to exist, it would exist as an external world object, But then the justification you give for that claim is that by New York City, you're talking about a place on Earth, and so it could not be the case. The experience is going to be identical to Spider-Man. But then that presupposes that the definition of Spider-Man was what he said. And that's going to be the necessary presupposition that you're baking in some external onto commitment in your definition, which you retract the original. Correct. Definitely correct.
Let me explain why.
You're sure if you just give it to blunders.
Once again, it's conceptually consistent to suppose that the experience of Spider-Man is conceptually consistent to suppose the experience in New York City. I'm saying it's empirically the case that they're not, right? The experience is located here, it's much smaller, there's different features to it. New York City, the world, Spider-Man, they're located elsewhere if they exist. They have different features, different sizes, different places.
Again, you're baking in the definition. So the definition that you have given for Spider-Man,
and it's not merely a matter of definition,
the definition you have given for Spider-Man bakes in New York City. And you're saying that by what New York City actually is, right, which is a part of the definition, it is the case that it would be an external world feature. So that means it's a part of the definition that there's going to be some external world commitment, and so if that thing was to be satisfied, that would exist objectively. However, the point of this agreement here is going to stipulate that the semantics. Hold on, the point you're making here is that the semantics for Spider-Man is supposed to be metaphysically neutral. You're not having any metaphysical neutrality. It's not metaphysically neutral because you're baking into the definition a part of the characteristic which is objective.
It's compatible with my definition. No, it's compatible with my definition.
Not just compatible, it's entailed from that thing that you've given alongside your definition that would exist objectively, which entails that your definition would not actually be metaphysically neutral.
No, it's compatible with my definition. It's compatible with my definition that the experience of Spider-Man is compatible with my definition of experiences.
I'm not denying the compatibility. I'm denying your claim, which is saying that it is incompatible with the relevant facts.
Yo, guys. So the chat. Wait, 1 second. The chat. We're gonna conclude. If you guys want to do like closing statements, your last few statements, and then we're gonna just wrap this up.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, just to finish my sentence there. The relevant facts are extra definitional. They're not a matter of the mere semantics. The relevant facts are that my experience system going on here, it's much smaller and has different features than what New York City in fact is, or what Spider-Man would be if he were to exist. That's, if you need, like, I don't know, a lesson in philosophy or language to understand that my experience is not a Spider-Man flying through New York City shooting webs, I'm not sure I can help you with that, but like, I don't know. I'll ask the whatever time I would have had.
So just to be clear on a couple of things, right? So originally, by the way, I just want to make this really clear for the audience. He changed his position over time, and now we're attacking the new position here. The new position of it is that, trivially speaking, by trivially, he doesn't mean it's logically necessary by definition solely, but he's talking about the definitional content alongside the available empirical facts we have. He said, given those two criteria, it would be the case that Spider-Man would not exist as an imagination if he was to exist. Now, the problem with this is that the definition for Spider-Man there is supposed to be something which is metaphysically neutral, i.e. it does not bake in any second order semantical property. It doesn't talk about or it doesn't presuppose any sort of mind independent or mind dependent feature. It's supposed to be neutral when it comes to those ontological talks. Now, that was the agreed upon point. The original definition is given, by the way, is just to say that Spider-Man is the person that crawls on walls and shoots webs. Afterwards, he changed that definition to Spider-Man is the person that shoots webs and crawls on walls in New York City, which is an objective existence on Earth. That's the new definition is given. Now, the new definition is given is no longer metaphysical neutral. The original point he made with the conversation is that it is the case that Spider-Man, given the definition of Spider-Man, which I presented originally, would be something which trivially indicates that it exists objective, which is not true. That's not correct. He had to bake in something which is not metaphysically neutral, i.e. something which is an objective place on Earth, to make the argument that it would not be in the imagination. So that's a change of his claim, and that makes the original claim false, and not to mention the continuous blunders he's made on the recorded with respect to what is going on in the conversation. And again, New York City detoryer is not something which is necessarily an objective place on Earth, nor is it the case that you could make an argument empirically that New York City is objectively existent. Any argument to give for the claim that New York City is an objective place on Earth would be some sort of argument based on some sort of abductive reason, given our metaphysical commitments or our meta-ontological commitments. It would not be something which is empirically true. Claims about something being mind independence or mind dependence are not claims which are true by empirics or by some other given logical scope. So even that standard would be something which falls
justifies the argument you're giving here or the objection you're giving here. And you got cooked. This is embarrassing stuff, and it's unrecorded. So that's basically for the Sure and the fanboys, and you guys can keep helping. I'm gonna go pray.
Peace.
Yeah, everyone vote on the poll. It isn't
I
there.
really skipped like
Wait,
a quarter of my
Detoryer, are
work.
you still there?
I skipped a quarter of my workout
Okay.
for this. Like, really.
Damn, Detroit. Oh, you was working out, wasn't you?
I was. I'm really still here. I'm in the bathroom. I don't know if people can.
That boy was hitting them
Hey,
legs.
can I try to look? Can I just try to like restate the stuff? I think I understood what you said completely, but I just want to make sure you. So
Sure.
okay, so you're saying okay, Spider-Man conceptually, Spider-Man is the